Hello and welcome to this latest episode of the Sales Circle podcast. The podcast that is designed to help you sell more. I can't put it any more simpler than that, to be honest. It's the podcast designed for entrepreneurs, business owners, salespeople, sales professionals, sales managers, anyone that's trying to sell anything to help you to sell more. My idea, my thesis, my hope is that we develop a community, a circle, no different to the magic circle, right? Where we can help one another, support one another, share tips, advice, help and support. And the podcast is a nice way to do that. My name is Rob Spence. I'm an internationally renowned sales trainer, sales author, sales coach. I'm the managing director of a fantastic sales and marketing agency here in Leicestershire, and I'm your host for the Sales Circle podcast. And today we are going to be talking about prospecting and how to really easily prospect for leads and how you can find more business, find more customers and do more business, put really simply. As always, although look, there's a sales training element to these episodes, please don't consider it a sales training. If you want to work with me for some sales training, let's talk about it. But these are, look, it's a 30-minute long episode where you're on your way to work, you're on your way to your meetings, you're driving home and you want to feel motivated and inspired, and most importantly, not alone. And hopefully, if I can share with you even just one thing that you think, wow, actually, I hadn't considered that, then I feel that I've done my job. So make sure, no matter where you're listening to this or watching it, you hit that subscribe button, hit that follow button. Now, the eagle-eyed viewers of you will recognise that we're still not in our normal studio. We use Paragon Creative Studios for our podcasting, and Studio 2, where we normally record, is still being done up. So I've just snuck into Studio 1 with a bit of a different backdrop. And of course, if you are listening to this, head on over to YouTube, go check it out, because it's actually quite a nice little setup. But let's talk a little bit, shall we, about prospecting. Now, as I said at the top end of this episode, we're going to be talking about prospecting today. So we're going to cover off, different terminologies, different glossary of terms, how things work out. And I think I want to use this first section to talk about why prospecting is so effective and why it's so important, I should say. I have worked with sales teams across the world, right? And, when I'm sort of doing some consultancy work, when I'm getting under the hood of the businesses, should we say, the majority of times people say, look, we're not doing enough business. We're not closing enough sales. I need my team to be closing deals. I need them to be closing sales. And you go, okay, well, let's look at the numbers. Let's look at things. Yada. And actually, although, of course, closing is an effective and a very important part of sales, normally when you lift up the hood and break things down, it's not really the closing that's the issue. It's the lack of prospecting. And I want you to ask yourself this. In 2024 or, last week or last month, maybe, whatever, how much time did you spend prospecting? Really take some time now to think, how much time did you prospect for leads on LinkedIn, on social media as a whole? How many cold calls did you make? How many cold emails did you send out? How many networking events did you attend? I want you to think about that for a second, because in my opinion, as a salesperson, that's a key number, a key thing that we should understand. Now, if I were to tell you that top sales performers, so those earning the big money, were prospecting at least 6 hours a week. 6 hours a week of prospecting for the top performing salespeople. Are you in line with those numbers? Are you more? Are you less? I mean, really, when we think about it, 6 hours per week, actually, in my opinion, is quite small. It's quite low when we think about it. We've got even if you're just working 40 hours a week, you've got a 40-hour week, 6 hours for prospecting, easily findable, right? It's not even an hour a day. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's not even an hour a day. Of course, a salesperson with other things to do, such as follow-ups, sometimes some admin, CRM work, looking after their current clients, proposing, pitching, that kind of thing. But only 6 hours a week. Now, if that's what differentiates a top-performing salesperson, now that statistic was taken from Sales Insights Lab. But ask yourself this: are you even spending an hour a day prospecting, finding new business? If not, we're going to change that. Now, I think some of the reason why people don't prospect well enough is because they find it challenging. In fact, a recent study from HubSpot says that 42% of salespeople find that prospecting is the most challenging part of the sales process. Of course, if we break that down, we will hear and we will learn that there's a fear of rejection, procrastination, and everything else in between. When it comes to prospecting, there's always that other job that needs to be done, right? There's that coffee that needs to be made, or that proposal that needs to be followed up with, or I need to tidy up my desk. There is always that fear, but it is the most important part. Now, LinkedIn created a report. This is a LinkedIn sales report. They said that 80% of buyers say they are open to hearing from new salespeople. So a lot of buyers are open to new ideas, but they do expect valuable conversations and valuable insights up front. And I think the caveat to that is buyers want to hear about new ideas. They want to hear about new products, new services, new ways of doing business, new ways of working. Of course they do. But in the grand scheme of things, they don't just want the AI generated, "Hi, I'm here to help you save tens of thousands of pounds on your pension. Would you like to consolidate all of your pensions to help you compound your interest and take business out of your money tax efficiently?" They don't want the AI generated nonsense that we get day in and day out, right? They want personalized information. So we know that prospecting is important for a variety of reasons, and three key things I've written down. Prospecting keeps the sales pipeline full. Now, I said in the last episode, and it's a really key point, the second we stop prospecting is the second that we go out of business, okay? Get that into your mindset. Maybe you're listening to this as an entrepreneur, a solopreneur. Maybe you're a web designer who works from home. The second you stop looking for business is the second that you suddenly go out of business. I said in last episode, my business have grown quickly and successfully through, recessions and through pandemics because we never stopped. We could have easily got enough clients in and gone, yeah, we're happy now. But we kept going and we kept pushing. And that's why prospecting is so important, because not all of your prospects are going to convert into sales, are they? Of course, it does reduce the dependency on a few key deals. Once again, I've seen businesses go bust because they put all their eggs in one basket. They've got a contract that's probably worth 90% of the business. You take away that contract, boom, business is gone. And of course, it creates that proactive approach. It's lovely. It is lovely when, our marketing is working really well and we're dealing with inbound leads and inquiries, contact forms, phones into the business, all those referrals and recommendations and everything else. But really, we want to make sure that we've got a proactive approach. So if you take those all away, if the internet were to die tomorrow, on my other podcast, How I Failed in Business, we had a great guest, Scott Mathy, and he came on and he was talking about sort of have pre-internet thinking. What would you do if your business would, if the internet were to go down, if your business was marketing, are you over reliant on Google ads and SEO and everything else? Are you used to picking up the phone and getting the yellow pages out and everything else in between? So it does create that proactive approach. So let's look a bit deeper into prospecting and sort of let's start to build those foundations together. Now, we're going to go through some key terminology of prospecting here. Now, if you are a sales veteran, if you're a sales expert yourself, or you're quite engrossed in sales, these terminologies won't be anything new. But if you're new to sales, then these 100% might be new. They might be fresh. We've got kind of some terminology here. We're going to talk about different types of leads. Now, there's kind of three key ones that you'll hear the terminology of, right? We've got cold leads. So these are people or businesses that have had no interaction with you, no interaction with your business, sometimes no interaction with your product or service. So normally these will be approached through cold calling, cold email, LinkedIn outreach. So if it's a cold lead, 100% there's someone that will have a need, a want, or a desire for your product, or a perceived want or need, but they're cold. No one's ever spoken to them before. Of course, they may become a warm lead. Now, they would have had some interest, but sort of haven't fully engaged yet. So they may have, signed up for your webinar. They may have downloaded your PDF and your free resources. They may have followed your social media. They may have, received your newsletter, whatever it is. They've had some kind of knowledge, but they haven't quite taken those next steps yet, right? And those hot leads, the best way to think of a hot lead is those that are truly engaged. They want the conversation to happen. So they're really close to making that purchase. You know, normally the best warm leads will have, the inbound leads, they're the ones that have kind of reached out to you. Some may argue that they are only warm leads, and I understand that argument completely. But in my opinion, if they've reached out to you, then they've got a want, a need, a desire for your product or service. It's just down to you to sell it, to close that deal, right? But it could be referrals, past clients, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of some key terminology and something to bear in mind. Let's look at some easy and effective prospecting techniques. So as a reminder, this isn't supposed to be a sales training. You know, if you're a sales manager, don't go put these podcasts in front of your sales team and expect them to become the best salespeople in the world. These are some hints and tips, and I've got kind of six techniques, 6 ideas that can help you to prospect and get more leads into your business and into your sales pipeline. Of course, we've done a whole episode before about social selling. We can focus on LinkedIn for now if we wish, but social media and social selling as a whole, if you missed that episode, do go back and listen to it. But LinkedIn and all social media is a fantastic way of generating leads and developing warmer leads. Now, especially if we're selling B2B, LinkedIn is fantastic, but don't forget it can be a B2C platform too. Now, I was asked a question recently, and I get asked it quite a lot. I'm very active on LinkedIn, is what I was trying to say. And people say, "Oh, you know, how much do you pay for it? Do you use Sales Navigator? Are you on the premium account?" The answer is no. I never have, and I probably never will. And the reason for that is I get what I need from LinkedIn through the free version, and I'm quite tight, you know, I don't want to waste money. And, you know, from my experience, my knowledge, LinkedIn is quite expensive these days. You know, so I want to kind of save those pennies, but you don't have to go out and pay for LinkedIn. Of course, you can use Sales Navigator to filter, you know, really cold leads on industry, job title, company size. Of course, it does become a really good database if you want to use it for that. Of course it does. But don't be afraid. Just post every day, make connection requests every day, send a couple of messages every day, like people's posts, be that social part of social selling or social media, and you'll be absolutely fine. Of course, cold emailing still works. Cold emailing is still allowed. People go, "Oh, what about GDPR?" Well, look, GDPR was stopped, or was brought in to stop a lot of nonsense that was going out and a lot of nonsense that was happening and so on and so forth. But, you know, cold emailing does still work if it's done right. So always make sure whoever you're emailing has a legitimate business interest. Make sure you've gathered their information, you know, in the right ways. But when we think about the email, make it compelling and engaging. You know, once again, to be honest, it's becoming a bit of a hatred towards AI at the minute, because you can spurn out so much spiel on AI nonsensically and send it to 10,000 people. It's not the best way to do business, right? So, you know, focus on value, not just selling. You're never going to sell on one email, right? Every email should be, and a LinkedIn message should be, a pointer towards a next step somewhere down the line. When you are sending emails, remember the 3-2-1 rule. So 3 sentences, 2 points of value with 1 clear call to action. Now, I said earlier about personalized emails, right? Personalized emails actually generate a 29% higher open rate than just generic ones. That's the study done by Campaign Monitor. So don't get me wrong, it's really easy just for us to kind of go out onto, you know, ChatGPT or any other AI software, get it to send 10,000 emails. But if you want a better high open rate, personalize the hell out of it. Is now a good time for you to start asking for referrals from people that you know and satisfy clients? We have a saying here within Paragon Sales Solutions about the 3 R's of sales: repeat business, recommendations, and referrals. And I was talking about this recently to a colleague of mine, and he said, "Well, no, recommendations and referrals are the same thing." Ha ha ha. No, they're not. In my opinion, recommendations are the referrals that happen when you're not in the room. A conversation happens at a networking event, down the pub, on the golf course, and someone says, do you know what? I need someone to train my sales team. That other person recommends me and Paragon Sales Solutions, or even the Sales Circle podcast, and say, look, make sure your team listen to the Sales Circle podcast. That is a recommendation. A referral is when you go to your clients and you ask them for referrals and introductions to their little black book. You say, listen, I've been doing some great work for you now for the past couple of weeks. You've seen some great results. Look, is there anyone in your little black book, any of your suppliers who you think could benefit from my product or service? What's the worst thing that's going to happen? They say no. What's the best thing that happen? They say, yeah, absolutely. There's 2 people that I know could need you right away. Let me introduce you straight away. We've spoken a lot on the podcast about content and in particular video content. Content-driven prospecting is going to be a key thing in 2025, I think. Gone are the days of just, cold emails, cold messages. Hey, do you want to buy from me? I think now a big trend we're going to see in 2025 is this content-led, whether that is, PDFs, white papers, blogs, podcasts, could be video content, whatever it is. I think now is a year where buyers want to be given value over just sort of sales pitches. Of course, get yourself out to networking events. There are hundreds of business networking events happening every single day, either physically or virtually, okay? Search around for them. Go on Eventbrite, search for networking events. You'll find networking events near you. Hell, there'll be a BNI close to you. I've no doubt in the slightest, but get yourself out there. You cannot sell an item if you just hide within yourself, if you hide within your shell. Once again, I've seen it so many times with businesses. They set up a business and they sit there and they wait for that phone to ring and they go, I'm going to go out of business soon because I don't know what's going on. You've got to get yourself out there. And of course, you can always utilize a CRM system to really hone in all of your leads, whether they're cold, they're warm, or they're hot. And as always, we recommend Monday.com. It's a very effective, simple to use CRM system. There's a link below for you to get some free usage from Monday.com. So go ahead and click that link. Now, it's all well and good talking about, the best ways to prospect, but what are some of the mistakes that I see? And I'm a business owner myself. I'm a managing director. I get sold to every single day. And I can assure you the majority of the time I get sold to, it's really, really bad. So what are some of the mistakes, the common pitfalls that I want you as a listener to the Sales Circle can avoid? Well, the first one is look, being too generic is, as I said earlier, it's all too easy to go utilize AI nowadays and send 1,000 messages. It's too generic. It's too boring. It's swiping right 1,000 times on LinkedIn, on Tinder, hoping you'll find the love of your life. It's not going to happen. So personalize things as best you can. We talk about this statistic a lot, right? It is far better to hunt down 100 people and send those 100 people 7 to 12 types of messaging through omni-channel, so through LinkedIn, email, handwritten letters, sending value, XYZ, than it is to contact 700 people just once, okay? Try and think about quality over quantity. We've got to be following up. Remember, 80% of sales happen after 5 points of contact. So you've got to be following up, whether those people have reached out to you, whether you're following up them. Until they say, look, bugger off and leave me alone, keep following up. Don't overlook those warm leads. Your client bank will be full of people who could refer you into other people, might be able to actually be upsold to, cross-sold to. So don't always go for that shiny new customer. Make sure you're getting as much from your current customer base, but still prospect for those new customers. Don't forget to qualify. We did a whole episode recently on, I think at the start of the year actually, on qualification and how we qualify leads. So try not to waste your time too much on those that don't have the budget, the authority, the need, or the time for you. Always, when we are qualifying, keep those doors open. We want to make sure that we are, not burning bridges, and we're keeping that door open for eventually further down the line that person can buy from us. But don't be afraid to bloody hell get out there and put people, prioritize others over everyone else. As I said earlier, prospecting is probably the most crucial part of any sales process. Yes, closing sales is amazing. It's to some degree, it's what pays the bills. But if you've not got leads to talk to, then you've not got enough people to sell to. So you've got to make sure you sell that way. So make sure you spend some time. I said sort of towards the start of this podcast, how much time are you spending prospecting? And if you don't know the numbers, work them out. Jot some time down. How much time are you prospecting? Remember, the top performing salespeople in the world prospect for 6 hours a week. You can find 6 hours a week. I'm actually convinced that you could find 12 hours a week of solid prospecting time if you truly, truly wanted to. The Sales Circle is proudly sponsored by Paragon Sales Solutions, an all-round sales and marketing agency that has won multiple awards for not just generating leads, but for helping you to close them as well. If you and your business want to see more leads, booking inquiries, then please do visit paragonsalesolutions.co.uk. So we're moving on to our listeners' questions. I want this. The key word for this podcast, right, for the Sales Circle is community. I want this to become a community of top performing salespeople, professionals, sales managers, sales directors, entrepreneurs, business owners, and everything else in between. And the only way we can build that community is if we talk to one another, if we ask questions. And every week I pick out some of the best questions that are related to the episode and I read them out in the hopes of answering them. So maybe you've got a question, maybe you're struggling with a prospect, maybe you're not hitting your sales targets, maybe you're struggling to overcome objections, maybe you keep being faced with an objection, maybe you're not closing enough deals, whatever it is, send in your questions. All you got to do is find us on social media, send us a message on there, or email in thesalescircleofficial@gmail.com, which is exactly what James in London has done. I'm down in London soon. Good to hear from you, James. Thanks for getting in touch. What's the best way to break the ice when prospecting for cold leads? Well, I think we learned earlier that the majority of buyers want to kind of get more business in. They want to speak to new salespeople. They want to get more ideas, more intake of people, right? So we need to make sure that we are doing that. But I think where salespeople go wrong is where they're boring, when they're not sharing value, or is that generic kind of conversation. So a story that I like to share is that of our old HR director. And actually, we still use him for some outsourced sales, outsourced HR work, actually. And Darren sold to me without selling. You know, I'd become aware of Darren, you know, through some networking events. We'd had the odd little quick conversation, saw his LinkedIn post. So there was all these touch points going on. I find HR people naturally boring. I'm sorry to say. Same with health and safety people. And whereas Darren, he aligned with me and he aligned with my personality. And he sent me a message. Now, this message wasn't, "Hi, Rob, I'd like to become your HR director. Please sign up." It wasn't that in the slightest. He saw an article that was about the government kickstart scheme that just came on the back end of COVID. And he said, "Look, Rob, I've come across this. I think it's of great value to you. Let me know if you've got any questions." The article wasn't written by him. There was no sales pitch. It was just, I saw this and thought of you. I read it and thought, actually, that is exactly what we're looking for. That will really help my business. Jumped on a call with Darren, went through the process. He did some work for us. So it's about selling value and breaking the ice a little bit as best as possible. We've got another one from Tom in Leeds. Tom says, how can I prospect without sounding salesy? Yeah, look, I mean, I get asked this all the time. I'm doing some sales training later this afternoon, actually, with a team who don't consider themselves salespeople. They're more sort of customer service, which I love, by the way. And I think no one likes an over salesy salesperson. I think the key thing that we need to do is differentiate and understand that sales doesn't have to be selling, and that selling is more just helping people to make decisions and to better their lives. It becomes a win-win-win situation, right? We are helping people. We are prescribing solutions. We are prescribing different ways of working. We are prescribing, ways in which we can help people. So, of course, we can go in and sound really salesy and say, "Hey, my product or service can increase your benefits by 80%. Let's hop on a call today," and all that nonsense, right? We can sound salesy. But if we develop those longer term relationships, realize that we're never going to sell on the first conversation. We're probably not going to sell on the second conversation. We might not sell on the third conversation. We could sell on the fourth conversation. We may sell on the fifth conversation. We probably can on the sixth. When we've got these touch points, we allow that conversation to flow. We allow that relationship to develop. So I think don't be afraid of sounding salesy. There's nothing wrong with selling. Everything in the world has been sold. You are watching this through a product that has been sold. That whatever you're watching or listening this to on has components within it that have been sold, made from the raw materials of things that have been sold. We need sales. We need them. Without sales, the world grinds to a halt. But we can sell without sounding salesy by just being a good extension of customer service and having those conversations. This one's anonymous. Local from Leicester, though, I think. How do I stay consistent with prospecting when I'm busy closing deals? Oh, it's a big one, right? We said earlier about, having those kind of 6 hours. Look, closing sales is really, really important. Salespeople can, and we shared a statistic earlier, I can't think of it off the top of my head, whereby salespeople spend a lot of time doing non-salesy activities. Those non-salesy activities we want to push to the wayside. We want to kick to the side, right? We want to stop that immediately. But if you're closing deals, that's good. It's all about time blocking and setting those goals and targets, Whether you say, look, between 8 and 9 every single day, I'm going to prospect. Whether you say between 4 and 5 every day, I'm going to prospect. Whether you say by the end of the week, I need to have just prospected for 10 hours and I'll just move that time accordingly. Whatever it is, right? Just block the time out and do it. I know that sounds really cliche and really lame, but just do it. If you set your goals and your targets and you know that you want to prospect and generate, 200K in new business through cold leads this year, you've got to do it. So thanks so much for sending in those questions. As I said earlier, if you've got a question of your own, please do email them in thesalescircleofficial@gmail.com or send them to any of our social platforms. Okay, so we're nearly at the end of today's episode. Thanks so much for tuning in. We've got a couple of minutes left. Before we go, let's share today's book recommendation. Bit of tongue-in-cheek, this one. Now hear me out. This is Dr. Seuss's The Sneetches and Other Stories. Yes, you heard that correct. This is my sales book recommendation of the week. The Sneetches and Other Stories. In fact, actually, take out the other stories, just read The Sneetches. This is a kid's book. There's no denying it. There's a lot of Dr. Seuss fans in the world, and I hope you are too. I love The Sneetches because if you've not read it, the Sneetches is the story of a salesman, effectively, who sells stars upon thars, and you'll know that if you read it. Stars on the bellies of the Sneetches. And he influences, he persuades for them, first of all, to have them on, then to have them removed, then on again, then have them removed again. But give it a read. It's probably... I'm clutching at straws with this week's episode of book recommendations because all my books are in Studio 2 that's being done up. But it's a great read. Read it to your kids and try and pick out the sales lessons that you can. But this is this week's book recommendation of the week. As always, I'll drop a link in the show notes or in the description below for you to pick up your own copy. But give it a read. It will take you 2 minutes. Read it to your kids and you'll truly come to love it. I have no doubt. So that wraps up another episode of the Sales Circle podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. As always, these come out every single Thursday without fail. And next week, we're going to be talking about a month to improve your sales. So we're going to be talking about the things that you can do within 1 month to see an improvement and an increase in your sales. And of course, it ties in nicely with my book as well. Listen, really appreciate you tuning in. Share this episode with a couple of your mates. Make sure you're following us. Make sure you're subscribing. If you're not following us on social media, please do so. Thank you so much for tuning in. I wish you a very prosperous week ahead. Get prospecting, get those leads in, and I'll see you or talk to you next week. And that's it for another episode of the Sales Circle. Make sure you hit that follow button. Join us over on social media, and we'll see you next week.